Welcome to the first episode of the Riff Tacos podcast. My name is Paul Misko, and I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. But I've wanted to start a podcast for a long time. Before I started my YouTube channel again, I had that idea first. And now that I've finally been creating some content, I think would be a good time to start this. And I thought using the first episode to kind of introduce myself and let you know who the hell I am would be a good idea before I start having on guests. I didn't want to bring anyone on to be the guinea pig, so I'll let that be myself. I kind of wanted to talk about what got me into music, my background in the bands I've been in, how I got started playing guitar, playing the type of music that I do. So, kind of starting from the beginning, I got into music late. I grew up an only child with just my mom. My parents were divorced when I was 2, and she didn't listen to a ton of music. So I kind of got into music not until I was like 12, 13, when Nick, who's the drummer in our band from a Second Story Window, he would show me stuff. Our friend Brady kind of got started listening to like Blink 182, Nirvana, Korn, whatever was coming out in the late 90s. And before that, I'd only heard stuff on the radio that my mom would play, and it really didn't do anything for me. I hadn't really gotten into sports. I didn't really like have my thing yet, even though I played like baseball, soccer, did karate. Was kind of just forced into that stuff by my mom trying to get me to, get into something and get excited about something. So I'd have not just a sport, but like a hobby or, something I was really passionate about. So it took me a while to find that. Nick and our friend Brady had started a band in high school. Maybe it was before high school, but they were called Youth Gone Wild. One day, this could have been before that, but we were in my backyard at my mom's place, and it was like a duplex. We had this neighbor guy, his name was Jay, and he would sit on his porch with his dog, and he would just jam on acoustic guitar, just a cool dude. He didn't mind that we'd come by and ask him questions and bother him and shit. And one day, Nick was over, and he went and asked him, he's like, "Can I play that guitar for a little bit?" And he was like, "Sure." So he hands it to Nick, and Nick's left-handed, so he had to flip it upside down, like Hendrix style. And he just played a Nirvana song, probably "Smells Like Teen Spirit" or something like that. But for some reason, that day is when it clicked for me, watching him do that and play guitar. Just like I'd never just sat and watched someone up close, play it. And something clicked for me, and I was like, I want to do that. And I remember going back to my mom's house later that night after they left, and I went in and I told her, I really want to play guitar. I want you to get me one. So can I get like a cheap guitar and a little amplifier, like a practice amp? And she right away was like, yes, like finally he's into something. He's excited about something. So she took me to the music store down the road, probably later that week. And I got a Cort. It was like a red Cort with a white pickguard and this little practice amp that looked like it was from, 1978. It was like puke green with like red buttons on it. I forget the brand it was. But I got that and plugged it in, had no idea what I was doing, just started messing around and making noise, and it just felt good. It felt fun. And I'd never felt that feeling about something, just even though I couldn't play anything yet, I just knew that like I like this. She was, since she was always pushing me to, take karate lessons, go play soccer, baseball, she's like, you have to take guitar lessons. It'll help you get started and you won't give up on it because you'll learn how to do something or learn how to play something. I went and took like maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7 lessons from this guy, Jeff. And he didn't really teach me, he didn't even teach me how to tune my guitar for one. He was like an old burnout dude, probably played in hair metal bands and shit. And he didn't really give a shit. But the lessons were, learn something from the book, take it home, practice your scales or chords or whatever. And then also bring in a CD you like, and he'll teach me like part of a song or the whole song if it was simple enough. So the first CD I brought in was Korn, Follow the Leader, having no idea that they're using 7 strings or what the difference between tuning, standard E down to standard A was. And he just looked at me like, oh God. So he like figures out, like playing one of the riffs like an octave higher just made me feel good. And I took that home and played with that. And I think I brought him in like the Kid Rock record, whatever it was, with Ba with the Ba on it, some Limp Bizkit, all the new metal shit that was coming out like 98. That got me started. Eventually, I quit taking lessons because I didn't feel like I was getting anywhere with him, but I figured out what tabs were and that I could get online and learn how to play songs from my favorite bands. And so I would learn, whoever, Korn, Slipknot, System of a Down, Nirvana, Blink-182, and I was just so hungry for music that now that I had found like, oh, there is music out there that I love, and it's making me feel something that I don't understand. So like, there's really something to this. So I would sit in my room and just play that thing all day. Eventually, you get to the point where like, I know 5 chords. It's time to start a band. So my friend Matt down the street, he was learning how to play drums, and our friend Chris, who had just moved into town from another school, said he would be the singer. We had our friend Darcy from high school play bass, even though she didn't know anything. But we just like, yep, you're the bass player now. And we just made little 3 chord songs trying to be like a pop punk band or whatever, and it was terrible. It was never really anything. We played at someone's like birthday party in a basement at one of our friends' houses, but that was pretty much the extent of that. And then I realized I loved heavy music more than anything, so I had to learn how to tune my guitar down, and didn't understand string gauges or that I needed thicker strings. Fast forward a little bit, Rob Heilman, who's in our band, and our friend Jeff from high school, they were seniors, we were freshmen. They were in a band called Aphasia, which later became From a Second Story Window. But we looked up to them because they were the cool guys with colored hair and jinkos and band T-shirts, and like, wow, they play in a band, they actually play shows. And so we'd go see them on the weekends at little VFW halls and whatever, and like they had a pretty good following for a local band, and like we were fans for sure. Eventually became friends with them, met Joe, who was playing bass then too. He's been in since the beginning, and Derek was the other guitar player that I eventually replaced when he left the band in 2006. But we'd go to their shows and talk to them and like ask them questions. And I remember one time Derek took a cocktail napkin and wrote down some chords for me, and I was asking about tuning, like how do I get my guitar to sound like that. He wrote down, I think, like drop C tuning and a couple chords, and I took that home and just that little napkin, and I started figuring things out. So I'm like, okay, I want to be in a metal band now. Big Sister Ashley, which I forget if I said that was what it was called, but that was what the first band was called. We just kind of stopped playing because it wasn't anything serious, and then started a band with Nick and our couple other friends from high school, and we called it Syndrome. It was as new metal as could be, and just terrible. We just wanted to sound like Korn. And one day, Jeff and Rob from Aphasia, From a Second Story Window, came over to our band practice just to hang out and watch us play. And they're like, "Man, your drummer Nick is really good." And at the time, their drummer was Jeremy, who eventually became the drummer of Robinson. And he didn't like the new metal stuff. He was like a punk guy. And so he quit the band, I think. And then they needed a drummer. So they're like, oh, we just saw this awesome kid playing at this band Syndrome practice from high school. So they're like, oh, we know he's a fan. He'd probably want to be in the band. So they basically just stole him from us. And of course, he was going to do it. And we were excited for him. But at first he said, I'll do both bands. And we were like, yeah, right. So he did for like a few weeks, and then just he's going to lose interest, which rightfully so. Like they were actually playing shows and they were recording, and we all loved what they were doing, so we were happy for him no matter what. That became the first lineup of From a Second Story Window with Jeff, Rob, Derek, Joe, and Nick. During that time, I was kind of like, well, what the hell do I do now? The band Syndrome kind of got some other members. We played like a couple of VFW halls, and that eventually just kind of fell apart. And then I got reintroduced to Jeremy, the first drummer for Aphasia, and he was starting a band with Greg Larimer, who was a guitarist in Robinson. And so it was just the two of them jamming in a basement at Greg's mom's house out in Pennsylvania. And they said they're looking for a guitarist. I think maybe Joe told me, like, do you want to go try out? And I said, hell yeah. So I drove out there. They were already into like, hardcore and metalcore, and were telling me about bands like Poison the Well and Converge and shit I had never heard of, because I was, just new metal as hell. Came in there with my UFO pants and baggy clothes, and we jammed. We got along really great. And I think they asked me the first day, like, okay, do you want to do it? I said, sure. So a couple practices later, I think Mike Illich came over, and he tried out, did a great job. We were like, hell yeah, you're in. And then eventually Jonathan Carroll, some people know him as Debbie, joined the band, and we named it A Good Day to Die. And we were just writing like metalcore, post-hardcore, wanted to be like Poison the Well, From Autumn to Ashes, Every Time I Die, Norma Jean, everyone who was coming up then. We had written probably like 8 songs. We recorded 3 of them for the first demo that we put out. And then all of a sudden, and I've explained this in my other Robinson video that's on this channel, but Jeremy was the first one to kind of go, I don't want to do this anymore. We sound like everybody. I don't want to play breakdowns. I want to do lots of blast beats and play nasty chords and just be fast as hell. He mentioned grindcore and power violence, which I had never heard of power violence. So like, okay. And I was bummed because I really liked all the songs we had written and I wanted to record a full length. But then we started, trying his ideas, and we took Concubine from Converge as kind of like a blueprint. And then that just became the whole blueprint, which was like short songs, fast as hell. Some of them have a big heavy ending or a big heavy part in the middle, but overall it was just like unrelenting, just straight punching you in the face as fast as can be. And I still to this day, like, I can't believe listening to that record again, how fast he was. He sounds like a drum machine. But once I realized, we kind of have something special here. No one's doing anything like this. And if we just piss a bunch of people off, then great. That's cool. And no one's going to like it, but at least, we have our own thing going. I forget who the first person was to suggest the name change too. I think Jeremy came up with Robinson. I could be wrong, but we were throwing around ideas because, everyone had die and death and, from this to that and, whatever. So we were like, we don't want to be like that. Let's come up with something that's completely neutral, that if you heard it, you wouldn't know what the band sounded like. And so that contrast was really cool. So someone threw out like last names. Let's try last names. So we're throwing them out like Johnson, Jackson, Robinson, whatever. Someone said Robinson, and either Mike or Jeremy said, I like that. And I was like, that sounds so stupid. That is so dumb. But the thing is, with band names, they're all dumb until the band makes it. It's the music that makes it, the visual, the live show. And then that whatever meaning that word had to you before the band, it just becomes the meaning for the band. And then the band makes it cool. They all liked Robinson. I remember maybe being the only one who didn't, but it stuck. And eventually I was like, yeah, that is pretty cool. Minus the Robinson Crusoe jokes and Swiss Family Robinson and what was the other one? I don't remember. But we started doing Weekend Warrior stuff. We were still in high school. People started picking up on it. It was going well. I think we originally were going to sign with some tiny label out of some kid's bedroom. And then DeBello came along and offered us to sign with them. And we were like, okay, screw this guy. We're going with him instead. So sorry, whoever that first guy was. I forget your name. But we were really stoked on DeBello, and we were young and assholes. So we just went with them instead. But being on DeBello was cool. They had Destroyer, and we met those guys, played some shows with them, did our first couple U.S. tours, and put out The Great City, our first and only full length, and got to go to Mexico, got to go to Canada, and go around this country. At least two full U.S. tours, and a bunch of weekend stuff, and a couple like 1 week here, 1 week there type things. And so that was my first stint into this, and thinking back to like that moment when Nick played guitar on my neighbor's porch, that moment of, wow, like I really want to do this, to all of a sudden I'm in Mexico playing a show to people who know my band, and we like signed people's shoes and shirts and stuff. Like it was just absolutely crazy, like full circle moment. And then another flashback to high school, talking with Nick. I remember having that conversation one night, like, don't care about making money. We don't want to be famous. We just want to like get in the van and go play a show somewhere else and just be on the road, with your friends, having the best time. And no matter what happened, we accomplished that dream. So that to me was like, I could have died happy then, because we knew there was never going to be money in this kind of music. And how long can you, drive around the country making Taco Bell money? But so that's why a lot of these bands are short lived. I don't think people realize, you're like, even if you don't think we're making like a lot of money, like we really weren't making shit. You're making enough to put gas in the tank, buy some Taco Bell, a couple packs of smokes and some beers, and then that's it. We did that up until 2006, and then I left that band to join From a Second Story Window. There was no like falling out or nothing like really happened, but they asked me if I wanted to fill in. I remember Robinson was on tour in Arkansas, and I think Fast was on tour at the same time somewhere else. I woke up hungover, like face down in someone's like, living room. It was dark in there, and I see my phone and pick it up, and it's Joe. And I'm like, oh, what's going on? Go outside, light up a cigarette, talk to him. And he's like, well, I have some news. Derek is out of the band, and we have tours booked. So we didn't want to interfere with Robinson or like make anyone mad, but you were the first person we thought of to fill in. So if you want to fill in, we'll pay you some money. And if you guys, as long as you guys don't have anything booked, and at the moment we didn't, our van was breaking down. Things like people were loving the record and the music and everything, but that, like where could we have gone from there? It was going to be the same thing. I think Greg's mom helped us out with money to like fix the van. We were broke down for a week in Arizona, and it was stuck in Yuma. While I loved the band and the music, things weren't going very well, and I was also just as close with everyone from a second story window because we'd known each other since we were teenagers. So I was like, well, I don't want to quit. Just like Nick said to me, I want to do both bands, and I genuinely did. We had more music written for Robinson. We were working on it on that tour. I remember sitting around working on it while we were stuck and broken down, and I was really excited for what that record could have become. And then, so I went on tour with Fastwell and filled in. And I don't even remember ever like saying specifically like I quit, I'm done, which maybe I did. It just wasn't going to be feasible to put in that much work with both bands and write two separate records and then go on tour, and both bands wanted to be full time. So it was like I'd have to make a choice here, and it was very hard, but I chose Fastwa. I don't think they hated me that much. We were still friends after that. I still talk to Greg, Mike occasionally, and Jeremy occasionally. And I do really wish I could have seen where we would have taken that. But I am happy with my choice, and we've done a lot of cool stuff in Fastwa. And then after I joined Fastwell, we got to do our first European tour. Went over there with Red Chord, played with Architects. They actually opened at the time, which was just insane to think now with how big they've become. But they were such cool dudes and taught me how to roll cigarettes because I couldn't afford to buy them. Yeah, that was just an amazing time. Went back a second time for the Hell on Earth tour with Walls of Jericho, All Shall Perish, and Freya, Born from Pain. I think there had maybe been one more band, but that was like the experience of a lifetime. It was the first time we got to have a tour bus and see a lot of those places in Europe that we didn't go the first time. The shows were much bigger. We are playing to like 1,000 people a night, sometimes more than that. And it was just one of those life-changing experiences, which if you've seen us share, is it Metal Injection or Metal Sucks? They shared a picture of Rob and I, like when we announced our reunion show. Of all the pictures online, they chose this picture of Rob and I on a ferry, and we're standing like leaving the UK, and we're taking pictures on the top of that. Our hair's all blown in our faces. We look like shit, tired as hell, and that was the photo they chose. So I guess they hate us, but that was funny. But yeah, like thinking back to when I started going through all this, getting to go to Europe, and then writing Conversations was from a second story window, which was an awesome experience. As soon as I got in the band and hopped on the first tour, I remember talking to Rob, and Delinda had just came out. So we had time, and we could take our time and write whatever the hell we wanted. And he was like, what do you want to do? I was like, I don't know. What do you want to do? I know Derek, who was in the band before, was like the main songwriter. So this is going to be like a completely new dynamic, and we could kind of just go any direction we wanted. Everyone at the time, I think another thing people don't realize is when you're on tour all the time with similar bands and everything's heavy every night, you get sick of heavy music. That is a big reason why a lot of bands, I think, start to change their sound. They get sick of it. They'll start to throw in clean vocals, and like it's just kind of a natural progression. So as long as that's what you really like and you're not forcing it to try to sell out or something, like that is the reason that happens to a lot of bands. You get sick of hearing the same thing every night and screaming, screaming, screaming. So us being big fans of Deftones and Brand New and Under Oath, we were like, let's try to like take things in a different direction and see what happens. And me being in Robinson playing grindcore every night, it was a breath of fresh air to like hear like a part open up and slow down and have a beat and a groove, just not be so in your face nonstop. So I think we were all just looking for like a breather from what we were doing, and that's where the sound of Conversations came from. And I know we got a lot of shit for it, but then we had a lot of people who found it after we broke up and really liked that album, and they never knew us before, never got to see us live. So there's like people were kind of divided on it. And I completely understand both sides. When I listen to it now, I'm very proud of it, but I think we kind of overcorrected. We oversimplified in some areas. A lot of it wasn't developed enough, but there is a lot of great stuff on there, and I'm happy we did it. And I think had we not broken up, that would have been a stepping stone in the right direction, and we would have kind of course corrected after that back into a happy medium, and who knows where it would have went. What happened, and again, back to the money thing, that was a big reason that we broke up. And we told this on other podcasts before, but we had this like terrible tour. It wasn't going well. We still weren't making much money, and Conversation was about to come out. I think we had already recorded it. We were on this tour, and then on this tour, we were supposed to do like an MTV2 interview or something, and we were excited for that, but like the road was beating us down so badly, and we were ready to just kind of be done unless something major happened that like saved it. And that's just not how things work. But we had a bad show. We were going to go home, and then because we were close to home, and then we are going to hop back on the tour. And we had this kind of like moment in the parking lot where we parked the van at Joe's old house, where I think he was the first one to just go, I'm done. I don't want to go play the next show. We were supposed to play New England Metal Fest. We decided one at a time. We're kind of just like dropping like flies, like I'm done. I don't want to do it. So we went and ate Mexican food and got drunk. We're kind of just like, that's it. And to give you an idea, we had this big record we had worked on, went in the studio for a month, stayed there. This was our life, and we were ready to just be done before it even came out, and we gave it a chance. So that's how beaten down you can get by doing this for years and years and years, and you're not climbing the way you wanted and needed to climb to make a living, especially if you'd like to have kids, start a family, and be sustainable. The older you get, the more this becomes like, okay, when is this going to get better? So we broke up before the record came out, and that was that. At the time, I had nothing else. All I had done was play music after high school. I went to college for 3 semesters and dropped out to get back in Robinson after we like took a break. I think between Good Day to Die and Robinson, somewhere in there. But yeah, back to what took me from that back to here, to the band getting back together and now creating this channel and doing all that. We broke up. I had to get like some crappy telemarketing job, like whatever job I could get. And I said, I'm just going to get the hell out of here and go to California. I had our friend Zach live there. I was just completely lost, but I'd rather be somewhere than Ohio and be poor and just try some, give it a shot at some other kind of life. I was like, I could go out there and try to work on film sets and, try acting, try writing, just another creative, venture. But I had to get out of Ohio because there was like nothing here. So I moved to LA, tried all that out, quickly realized within like a year or so, I was like, I hate this. I hate the people in this industry. I hate how it works, and that it's not about the art most of the time. It's about whatever, is just the most appealing and what will make money. I quickly learned like, this is not for me. So I ended up in, guess what? Another band. So we started a band called What Say You with, I forget how I got introduced to the guys, but I ended up meeting one of my good friends now, Dom, who's from Youngstown. We both played in bands, but never knew each other. And he was out there, and they were putting together this pop punk band. And it was really good, really catchy, Warped Tour type stuff. And I never thought I'd find myself in a band like that, but I decided to give it a shot. I was like, this is something different. It's fun. These guys are cool as hell. So we started that. The singer had written maybe 2 or 3 songs by himself, and then we were turning them into songs with the full band. And then I wrote maybe 2 or 3 more. He had an acoustic single, so like we had enough for like a full length. But we first did an EP, and we played some shows around town. Played the Viper Room, which was a cool bucket list to check off. Played Chain Reaction, and did that for 2 or 3 years. And we did a really cool music video that was like a favor from a friend who was an assistant director at the time, I think. And so he really knew his shit, and he was like, this is a good opportunity for me to like be in charge, and it'll be like my own thing for my portfolio too. So called in a lot of favors, had a lot of friends work on it, and it's a really cool video. It's called the band was What Say You, and the song is called Potentials. If you want to look it up on YouTube, it's still up there. It looks like a really professional music video, and we did it for really, really low budget, but the guy knew what he was doing. His name was Isaac Heckert. So thanks again, Isaac, for that. Came out really well. After What Say You broke up, I was just kind of like, okay, what the hell do I do now? I was at the time for work freelancing. I got a job with this company called Tell 'em Grody PR. And even though it was like consistent work through them, I was still technically a freelancer. they let everyone work from home. So they were kind of ahead of the game on that. And I've been doing that really ever since, but just kind of grown and got my own clients and supplemented wherever they couldn't fill in for like full-time work. But I was just doing that. And I'm like, I still need a creative outlet. So what the hell am I going to do, just to stay sane? Eventually, after I think a couple years off after What Say You broke up, I decided to do a solo project. I was like, this is my opportunity to kind of like right the wrongs of what we did on conversations or what anything we didn't get to do. And, what would kind of like that sound be, or at least my own version of it, just not trying to be from a second story window, but with all my new influences, I was listening to a lot of Architects, Bring Me the Horizon at the time, and just loving what they did. I always said like Architects, Lost Forever, Lost Together, and then the one after that, those two are like such perfect records. I was like, this is the kind of music that I always wanted to write, the perfect mixture of melody and heaviness, and it was just crushing and beautiful at the same time. And it's like that's what From a Second Story Window was always trying to achieve. And I feel like this is where we would have taken it eventually after conversations, and we kind of figured out how to balance everything properly. So I was just in love with that. And I've always loved Bring Me the Horizon. I think everything they do is great. Even the records that people aren't stoked on, I still think they achieve what they're going for, even if it's not your thing. But with those two in mind, and then kind of wanting to do what I didn't get to do with Fastwa, I decided to do a solo project. I was like, I can program drums, I can play guitar and bass. I've never sang before or screamed before, so I'm gonna have to figure that out. But I just want to do the whole thing myself. It'll be easy to not deal with people, because just over the years, there's always one guy in the band that's like causes issues or doesn't show up or doesn't have money to pay rent for their practice space. I was like, I just want to deal with no one else. It'll be me. I can do it at my own pace and I can do it at home. So I wrote 5 songs. It took me forever because I was so meticulous about every little guitar part and harmony and melody. And then I had to figure out how to scream. So thankfully, and thank you, Gladys, my girlfriend. We were living in LA at the time in this little apartment, 1 bedroom, and she let me scream in the corner of the living room with this little setup with the mic, and I had some things hung up and scream until I like could actually develop my voice enough to be able to do it for longer than a few sentences and lose my voice in like 20 minutes. And then once I got confident enough, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna go for it. And I even did some clean singing on it, which I cringe listening to myself this day, but for my first try, I don't think it's that bad. And the only thing I don't like about that project is the mix. I mixed it myself, and then I had Jocko, who's done all the Fastwa stuff, master it. I should have let him mix and master it. But one day, I think I'm going to go back in and redo it because I'm still very, very proud of those songs. I think music-wise, at least, is some of the best stuff I've still ever written to this day because I spent so much time on it. That's called Phoenix Lights. That's on streaming platforms everywhere still. So I'd like to revisit that and re-release that one day. So if you didn't know that, I have a solo project. So then after that, my girlfriend and I moved to Texas and we moved to Austin. Then I kind of was excited because I was like, I can get, there's so many musicians here. I kind of want to get better at learning how to play like blues guitar and things like that. And even maybe some country, just have fun with it. And we ended up splitting up, my girlfriend and I. So she moved to Houston, back where her family's from, and I stayed in Austin. So I had just left all my friends in LA. Didn't know anyone really in Austin yet. I knew like 1 or 2 people. And then all my friends were back home from the band and high school and all that. So like I was just kind of left there. So I go, I'm just going to get really good at guitar, and started learning like blues scales and writing my own projects again. I was like, I'll eventually find a drummer and another guitar player here and put together a band. So I wrote like 10 songs, got better at guitar than I ever was, played with the drummer a couple times. He ended up being lazy and not really working out. So anyway, that never, came to fruition. And I kind of went through a period of depression of just like, I lost my girlfriend. I don't have, a band. I don't have anything I'm passionate about right now. I'm just working to make money and working to pay the bills and to survive. And if you're a creative person, then you know what I'm talking about. It just leaves a hole in you. And when everything else is going wrong in your life, in addition to not having that, you can get into a dark place. So I was there for a few years and just trying to crawl out of it. I didn't know what I was going to do. Luckily, glad he came back into my life. We got back together and we moved into a house together outside of Boston. And this is kind of when the Fastwa stuff was starting to come back a little bit. Wax Festival had did the vinyl release of the full discography. That got us all chatting again. And we were in a group chat talking all the time. And even though we didn't talk about it, and it was still kind of like, oh, it's impossible for us to ever do a reunion or anything, that feeling was always there that something might happen, even if it's just one show. So that was kind of exciting. And during that period of, being depressed, I stopped playing guitar, stopped working on my project. I just had like 10 songs sitting there. And I was just like, I don't know what to do with my life. I was also like losing work, like work was going bad. It was just everything was bad. So Gladdy was the only good thing. But then after the vinyl had come out, we were talking for a while. Eventually it came up like we should do a show. And I know we've told this on a few podcasts, and I maybe covered it in one of my other videos, but someone said we should do a reunion show. Like, enough people still care. We're getting a lot of comments and messages from people all over the place saying they'd come and they would drive or fly to see us. So like, maybe we should do this. So we planned to do a reunion show, and then I was like, well, I'm gonna write something and see if they want to do some new music too. So it's like more than just one show. And I was just like, I need this. I think everyone kind of needed it, and we could do all the things we never wanted or never got a chance to do with music, just like, calling it quits so quickly. So I started writing So Say We All. It wasn't called that at the time. It was just song one or whatever. And I wrote about the first minute or two of that, programmed the drums, just, I'd been playing with Nick still to this day more than I've ever spent any time with any other drummer, because we were in our first band together. We were in From a Second Story Window together. Now we're back in it together. But I know him inside and out. He's also like my favorite drummer. So I was like, I'm just going to do whatever Nick would do. That's what I'll do on the drums. I'll get it as close as possible to sounding like this band, keep it melodic and heavy. That just came out, and it felt really good, and I was happy with it. And then Sean was also in the chat with us. Will was there too. It was all of us. And he texts me on the side and he says, would you be interested in, writing a demo and just like putting it in there and seeing what the guy said? I said, I'm already on it, already working on a demo. So I sent it to him first to get like a temperature check. And he was like, dude, this is fucking great. Put it in the chat and see what they say. So at the time, there was no clear, like, anything of what was going to happen. Like, was Will going to be the singer? Was he going to want to do it? Was Sean going to do it? Were they both going to be on it? Is it going to be more than one song? What are we going to do? So I put it in there. Everyone was super stoked immediately and said, okay, let's go. And it just kind of lit a fire under everybody and got them excited again. And so that was like the whole start of From a Second Story Window coming back, was this idea of reunion show and then having one new song. So we just kept going. And eventually it came to, all right, we're going to stick with the previous lineup, how the band ended. We'd obviously love to have Sean at the shows, but Will was still the last singer. We're going to have it be him. And, we'll have Sean on a song as a guest spot, whatever. So we write probably 6 songs and recorded 2 this past year, put those out. And then we played Furnace Fest, played a handful of other shows, and everything has gone fantastic. To keep the rest of this short, as you probably know the story, if you are familiar with the band or you follow us, Will decided to step down and, just spend more time with his family, because it was a lot of strain on him traveling and going to shows. And we wanted to be more active in 2025. So we didn't want to like be pulling him away from work. He had a new job that was going well too. So luckily Sean was around and excited, and he lives in Ohio, and he was willing to step in. So we have our 2025 lineup ready to go, working on new music with him. We're going to take the band in a heavier direction, because he's obviously not a clean singer. Not that he can't or isn't willing to try, but we were all kind of ready to, like, we've taken this long journey away from the EP and then Delinda and then Conversations and the new songs. And everyone's just kind of ready to be heavier in the first place. And then Sean joining was just kind of the perfect moment to go like, okay, let's turn everything up to 11, and everything's going to be much heavier, faster, darker. If you're expecting another So Say We All with Sean on it, that's not what you're going to get. So I'm excited for you to hear what we have coming. I can't say anything yet on that, but you will hear something sooner than later. I'll just say that. This is like all of this coming back together too, and me coming out of my dark place and being back in the band and like feeling like, wow, I have a purpose again. I have a passion again, something that, wake up and be excited about every day to work on. And that got me into creating content, first starting for the band, doing some of our playthrough videos from the old songs and learning how to record myself and record the guitar and edit that together and, post reels and stuff like that. And then eventually moved to Ohio to be closer to the band earlier this year. My girlfriend is luckily so supportive and awesome, and we don't have kids or anything. So she was like, I completely support if you want to move up there and be close to the band while it's happening. I know it's not going to be like a career for you, so it may be, short lived. We had no plan at the time. So if you want to do that, we can travel back and forth and visit each other. And I know that's going to make you really happy. So it was a really hard decision, but it was for the best. I also, quick sad note, but also the other reason I moved was my dad was here alone and he was getting older. So I was like, I can be here for him. He's in his 80s. He lives by himself and I can be close to the band. I moved here for that too. And he unfortunately passed away 30 days after I got here on Easter this year. That was just completely unexpected and insane because he was healthy and that happened out of nowhere. So that's been a whole other unexpected thing that I've had to deal with and go through. But everything has been worth it. And if I didn't move back here for the band, I wouldn't have got to spend that last time with him that I did. So it's weird. It's almost like, it happened for a reason, whether you believe in that stuff or not. I don't really know if I do, but earlier this year, I posted some videos covering like Metallica and whatever. And I just started to get into it. My dad passed away right after that. So it kind of sidetracked me and I kind of lost interest for the moment, but then I got back into it recently. I was like, I'm just going to record some covers, some riffs, do a riff of the week, do some videos talking about Robinson and From a Second Story Window and kind of breaking down our songs. Cause like no one in either of the bands has ever done anything like that. It'll be a good lesson for me because I'm uncomfortable talking to a camera, just putting myself out there like that. I've never done it. We're not the generation that has grown up with iPhones and, talking into the camera all the time and TikTok and all that. And so I'm going to keep growing the channel. I'm going to have guests on this podcast, see who I can get to come on from, bands we were friends with back in the day, new friends we've made now, people who work in the industry in any capacity, agents, managers, people from gear companies, whoever wants to come on. So if you're watching this and you'd like to come and chat, I'd love to have you. I think I'll wrap it up here for the first episode. The name of the podcast, Riff Tacos, it doesn't have any specific meaning, but I went through 100 names and I just kept landing on that one for some reason. I was like, that's funny and it's cool and it's got riffs in it and riffs are sick, obviously. So that's the name of the podcast. This will wrap up episode 1. Thank you for listening. Please consider giving me a follow on your platform of choice or subscribing on YouTube. Thank you very much for listening. Have a good one.